Nonprofit Chat, those of you who are new joining us, this is our 6th Nonprofit Chat. And we're excited to have Jeff here with us from Handbid. And you guys built an amazing online auction platform.
Thank you.
That works great with sort of event-based auctions, silent auctions. The best part is sort of how technologically advanced it is in terms of everything is instant. It connects to your phone. It connects to any device that you're using.
Right.
And you can project it on the big screen and see things happen live, real time. Which is
That's right.
Pretty amazing.
Yeah, we're trying. We want to create. We want to turn kind of your old traditional paper auction into something that's alive, right?
Mm-hmm.
Something where you actually start to see things happen, right? Because you back in the I call it, because a lot of people still do paper auctions, but when you did paper bidding, it was a very disconnected type of environment. You came up, you bid, you walked away, maybe you went to the bar, got a drink, came back 20 minutes later, saw you got outbid. It wasn't a really kind of an active thing. And now, then other solutions came along, and they take that and they just replicate it down onto the web, right? So I can do it from my phone, but it's still not interactive, right? So how do you take it to the next step? How do you get people to stay connected to it and continue to do it, and knowing that they can be anywhere, right? So yeah, a lot of our events, a lot of the auctions run on our platform are event-based, but then again, a growing number of them aren't. And we should talk about that later too, because we were talking about, do you have to have an event to run peer-to-peer? And I'm starting to find, especially with even some of the nonprofits I'm on the board of, that's not necessarily true anymore.
Yeah.
You can do these virtual events.
Right.
Yeah.
So anyway, so we're seeing more and more of that.
Yeah.
Online only auctions.
That's
awesome.
nice.
Yeah, that's definitely a trend for sure that we've witnessed as well. So cool. So I'm Nate. I work with WannaPixel, and this is Marissa.
Marissa, I'm CMO at WannaPixel.
Yep. So today's topic, do you want to introduce it, Marissa?
Yes, we are talking about crowdfunding versus major gifts donors, or major donor gifts.
Yeah.
So major gifts versus crowdfunding for fundraising for nonprofits.
And by crowdfunding, we're kind of lumping, any sort of multiple person type of funding, crowdfunding, peer-to-peer, all of that. They're different flavors, definitely, but it's the difference in approach. So.
Yeah, so just for the purpose of definition, to share with our audience, what is crowdfunding?
So you want me to answer the question? I'm happy to. Okay.
Yeah.
So what you're trying to do in crowdfunding is put up a campaign, like basically a donation page, and then you want to put various types of levels that you're after there, and you're trying to kind of accumulate donations against that campaign or that page.
Okay, cool.
Kickstarter made it popular with, I would say, startup type projects and ideas. There's a number of companies out there that do it. We do it also inside of our own platform related to the event. You can kind of do it that way as well, but it's something that you're starting to see more and more people do, because it's one of those things where, I can go out there, put a donation page up, I can drop in the levels. I think the levels are important, and you can start to communicate to your donor base or your potential donor base, these are the types of things I'm trying to do, whether it's, fund a student, build a quarter of a house or a whole house or a half house, or, feed a family for a week, a month, or a year. It's really starting to try to connect the donations to some sort of, nonprofit, program service they do in their goal.
Right.
Yeah.
Those levels and those names of those levels, I think, are super important. Like, I think people really connect with those.
They do. And it's different than a typical nonprofit's website donation page, which is really just there to capture general donations. These crowdfunding things tend to be a little bit more project-based or campaign-based.
Yeah.
Okay, again, I'm a nonprofit newbie. I'm asking. So I've heard these terms, peer-to-peer fundraising, and then there's social media fundraising, which I think I know what that means, and then there's crowdfunding, which you just talked about. Are these all exactly the same thing? Is there overlap? Are there differences?
Well, they all have the same various, basic premise, which is you're going to be raising money online. And you're going to be trying to use digital, social media, everything else to try to connect with a donor base that's going to come back and fundraise. The difference between a crowdfunding solution and a peer-to-peer fundraising solution is that in a peer-to-peer fundraising solution, there's another level of that.
Okay.
So when I'm doing crowdfunding, I'm putting up a campaign page, I'm putting up my donation levels, hey, I'm raising money to build a new wing of the school or something like that. And you can buy a brick or you can buy a wall or whatever you want to do, and you have different levels, right? And there's different levels of recognition and some sort of maybe perhaps prize associated with what you give. In peer-to-peer, you're not inviting everybody to come to a single donation page. You're actually inviting people to create their own pages, and you're building out an ecosystem of fundraisers. And then your goal is to get those people to go out there and connect to their social networks. Mm-hmm. So it's definitely the social networking Facebook concept on steroids for fundraising. Right. It does work. I've done it for a while. I will tell you that what's nice about it, not only are you able to reach other people giving you money that you normally wouldn't reach, right? It's incredibly less expensive than trying to send them all a letter in the mail and ask for a check, right? I think it's way more effective, but at the same time, it also builds up a much bigger donor base.
Right.
Yeah, the one thing, just to clarify, some things that I've heard, some things that I've read, crowdfunding sometimes is more accessible to anyone, I think. And so some organizations sort of have this fear, cowboy in the wild could go out and say, this family needs X, help with their house because it got hit by a tornado, whatever. Right. Rather than going through our organization, they're going to be able to, make a direct appeal, and that's going to cut us out of the equation. Whereas peer-to-peer tends to be more specifically organization driven, an organization platform that's driven by the organization. Both are used by organizations, but crowdfunding, I believe, is.
Well, I think crowdfunding is applicable to the first example you gave, probably more so than peer-to-peer. Right. But and we can come back to this because I do think that either one of those works well for that quick reaction crisis, donate. And kind of raise money on the fly type of thing, which you tend to see when there's some sort of natural disaster or something like that. Whereas peer-to-peer, I think is probably the only way to go if you're trying to do something a little bit more planned and purposeful.
Right.
If there's an earthquake, in a particular state and you're trying to quickly raise money for families, throw up a crowdfunding page. It's way easier. People donate to the page. It's all good. Nobody wants to compete for the most number of donations made to an earthquake disaster. Right. So, I think the peer-to-peer thing, is one of those things that tends to be something you do as some sort of planned campaign throughout the year.
Right.
What's so powerful about these tools today is that, for crowdfunding, you can spin up a page and a campaign like that. You connect to people anywhere. Mobile is definitely where that's going. I know that's new and uncomfortable for a lot of nonprofits. We talked to them about switching out paper bid sheets for using a mobile device. The going even further than that and asking everybody else.
Yeah, you're talking 2025, 2030 for some of these.
Well, hey, the donor of the future is on it. They're in their late 20s, early 30s right now. They one day will have the disposable income that most charities are after, and they're going to be used to doing it on their phone. So, those types of trends are coming, and that's a whole other topic. But I do think that peer-to-peer is, to summarize, it takes more effort. It takes more planning. Mm-hmm. It takes way more coordination. But it will also, it is extremely more, it's a more reachable, you can get out there and reach more people. And so you're going to find that, if you get it done and you do it right, you're going to see a much bigger result. And again, let's say if you do it right, because we were talking about this earlier, it requires effort.
Yeah.
For sure.
So I'm going to switch from kind of nonprofit newbie to devil's advocate, someone who I believe that major donor gifts are the way to go, and they're the only way to go, and that's what we've always done.
We should even talk a little about major donor gifts, gift programs, what they are, the effectiveness of them, how they've been used in organizations, and that sort of thing. Each of these is a tool, right?
Yeah.
So they're not necessarily exclusive of each other.
Right.
What's your
Right.
experience with that?
Well, I have seen there be some, I've seen that come up before, right? I mean, I sit on the board of a couple of nonprofits. We have lots of clients. We talk about their fundraising in general. One of the things we try to squash very quickly is that I'm going to do this or I'm going to do that. Now, keep in mind, some nonprofits don't have a ton of resources.
Right.
So they look at it and they say, well, I can apply all of my efforts to this project. I can go run my major gifts campaigns and I can nurture, those major donors. Or I can invest in some of these online fundraising ideas. They're going to take a little bit longer to pan out. They may be a little bit more, of a challenge for us because we don't have the skill set in-house. And they look at it and they figure that it's one or the other. And, you got to figure out how to do both, at some level. I don't know of many charities these days that don't have an online donation page, right? They're starting there, right? But then to take it a step further and say we're going to run some of these campaigns and see how they work and start to recruit new donors, especially younger donors through digital, gift programs, I think is a great way to go. So major gifts and those types of campaigns in the past have been fairly traditional. I don't think it has to stay that way. I still think you can find some of these future major donors through online efforts.
That's what I was going to ask. Can
Right.
major donor gifts come out of the peer-to-peer fundraising or social media campaigns? Or...
And these things can work together.
Yeah.
So one of the charities I'm on, the Foundation for Prader-Willi Research, we do both. And we understand that you need a certain skill set and a certain group of resources in the organization that's going to focus on the peer-to-peer campaigns.
Mm-hmm.
And those are incredibly successful. And it would be hard to let those go. Then you go over a step and we have events, right? Well, events aren't going away because I'll tell you, this is not just because we run a lot of auctions at events, but events are a great way to recruit future major donors.
Mm-hmm.
Because you get to meet them in person. To me, they're the best marketing tool ever, right? I get to invite you to an event where I get to market to you about what my organization does and what the great work it is that we're doing, and you get to pay me to do that because you donate at the event.
Right.
I mean, how
Captive
fantastic.
audience.
It doesn't get better than that.
Right.
So, but, I think this goes back to that online versus offline. It doesn't have to be one or the other. I think they kind of intertwine with each other. So, at FPWR, we've said we're going to do events. And actually, we are increasing the number of events we're doing, right? Whereas the vast majority of, right now, a huge majority of our fundraising is done online through peer-to-peer.
Mm-hmm.
We're starting to increase the number of events we're doing. And we have somebody in our organization who is primarily focused on major gifts.
Awesome.
But not, it's not, in lieu of, or instead of doing online stuff. It's both.
Right.
Yeah.
So thinking how can you make these work together?
Yeah.
All right. So I've heard people say, in fact, this was from the classy.org, listed some objections that they've heard. Peer-to-peer fundraising only works for organizations that already have sort of an established donor base. They already know who their audience is. It's very connected and established.
I think actually quite the opposite.
Right? Yeah.
I haven't heard that one, but that would be an easy one to talk about. So
I feel like these are soft.
It does sound counterintuitive. I
That's
need
an
to
easy
find
one.
some stronger objections for you.
So I'm on the board of a charity that I founded back in 2004 timeframe here in Colorado, and we have a very established donor base. Okay, we are able to raise money online through a campaign we run in the spring for our Kentucky Derby event. We've again merged event with online fundraising, right? And we've gotten those to work together, and we reach people that you would have never been to our event, B, don't even live in this state or even in this country, who have contributed to our organization simply because of the online campaign that's being run.
That's awesome.
So I actually think it does quite the opposite. I think it actually works well if you don't have an established donor base.
Yeah.
I think that for organizations that have tens of thousands of donors in their donor database and they can fire out those letters and get the checks back in the mail, they're probably pretty content with that. They should
Yeah.
watch out because that's going to erode over time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's up.
So, but how do you how do you go out and source these people to join your peer-to-peer campaign? What's the
Well, that's the secret sauce, right? Yeah, exactly. That is not, that requires definitely a little bit of cheerleading and a little bit of effort and a little bit of marketing. And so you have, for some organizations, I can imagine that can get them out of their comfort level a little bit. It can feel a little uncomfortable to go out there and do that. And you're asking some of your traditional donors to get out of their comfort level a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
It's one thing if I write you a check. It's another thing if I have to ask all my friends to donate to me
Right.
so I can give them.
right?
And and this happens in my own family, right? I've got family members who are like, oh, I'll write you a check, but I don't feel comfortable creating a fundraising page and asking my friends.
Right.
And of course, my response to that always is, well, it's not really fair. Not because it's not coming to us. You're not giving your friends the opportunity to help you or to support a cause that you care about. They have the option to say no.
Right.
Right. So, it does take a little bit of coaching like that, and it definitely takes some coordination. You've got to inspire people to go out there and do it. Where we've been successful, especially at FPWR, is that we've really pushed hard for the competitive aspects of it. In a good way, it's fun, right? We do the same thing here with PWSA. I mean, it usually comes down to me and my sister and a couple of other people who are really, on Facebook the last 2 weeks of this campaign, pushing hard for who's going to get first place. But I'll go from $6,000 on my page to $9,000 on my page in a week by just incessant Facebook. I got to get back in the first place. I got to get back, and that's the fun competitive spirit of it. And so you've definitely got to find a couple of people that can do that. The other thing you've got to do with peer-to-peer that I think helps is you've got to find people willing to kind of, host a team, whether that's a city, you're competing against other cities for some sort of either physical prize or virtual prize or just bragging rights or whatever, or it's just a team that you put together. I mean, you see this a lot of times with companies, right? And you'll see these companies come together and either compete against each other internally or compete against other companies in the area. And that becomes healthy as well. Because now you're saying, you go out to your friends and say, hey, I'm raising money for, this organization. It's important to me, but we're in second place. We want to win. Can you help us win? And yeah, they may care somewhat about the organization you're raising money for, but it's usually the relationship with you.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I'll give you $50.
Sure.
Yeah.
We're so close. Yeah.
So other questions that I have, and I think you actually touched on this in the beginning, but organizations that say we can't do this because we don't have an event behind it, so we have to wait till we get an event and we don't know when that's going to happen.
Right.
Yeah.
Because hosting an event takes work and money.
Yes.
And
It's intimidating. I don't want to do it.
It's intimidating, and and some people just get worn out on that. But you don't have to, right? It's so funny because the first time have you ever been to a walk? I was like,
Yeah.
you just walk around a circle. Like I went to one thing and you just walk around the track. That's not the point of it.
Right.
The point of it is to gather there to recognize, people's contributions, to say thank you from the organization for what's being done,
Right.
and then to move, and then to kind of do a ceremonial walk and be done. And there's nothing wrong with that, but you can do that also. You can raise that kind of money, and you can celebrate that all online. And so we added another quote unquote what we call a virtual event at PWR. It's a virtual walk. And so if you want to raise money for your organization, but you don't want to host a physical walk in your city, you join the virtual walk. And it's been real successful for us. And the amount of money that's come in through that year over year has gotten bigger.
Yeah. The other thing too is that, even if you're a small organization and you don't have an event to tie to,
Right.
you always have things like Giving Tuesday or other,
Exactly.
National days that are specific to your cause
Right.
that you can latch on to and sort of.
Yeah.
So I have this list here. It's not an objection, but I thought it was really interesting. Smart nonprofits. This is from GailPerry.com. Smart nonprofits are seriously investing in their social media presence. They are identifying donors who are active users of social media, which is what you were talking about with peer-to-peer, and enlisting them to be ambassadors. And they are active participants in giving needs. Do you have any other tips for nonprofits that can sort of help them do these kinds of campaigns, or help them have the social media presence, or go in this direction? If they're used to the whole traditional major donor.
Yeah, I think again, this could be another topic for a future chat. I don't think that nonprofits fully understand the power of inbound marketing, right? In terms of how you're going to nurture somebody who's just starting to get a little bit associated with what you do, all the way down to becoming an evangelist for you.
Right.
And you walk through you have a funnel, and in the very beginning when they come into that funnel, they're just new, right? And then at some point they may start to subscribe to your blog or read your articles or visit your site 2 or 3 times, and then from there, you'll start to see exactly how they kind of flow down to a potential spot where they may become a fundraiser for you. It's classic marketing. And so you look at PWR, so that's the Foundation for Broad Early Research. So my daughter has a lifelong genetic disorder, okay? And so when she was diagnosed, like any other parents, you go to the web, you Google it, you start reading up on what it is and how it impacts them and how it's going to impact the family and everything else, and then you start clicking on results in the search list, right? Well, our organization's in that result set, right? And yes, we pay close attention to where we fall on that list, right? Mm-hmm. Because we have information we need to share with them. Mm-hmm. And so when they show up at our website, right, we want to direct them through a certain path. Because at some point, we want to give them important information. We also want to tell them that, their life is not over, that there's a lot of really good things that are going to, they can't see it at this point, but there's a lot of really good things that are going to come out of this situation they have to just be hopeful for. Mm-hmm. But then down the road, we want to tell them what the organization's about and hope, right, that they decide that they want to become a fundraiser for us, mm-hmm. and then connect their network of hundreds or if not thousands of contacts into what we're about and what we're doing, mm-hmm. right? Because we're a rare disease, right? And when you're that small and the scope of what you do is that small, it becomes even harder to raise money, if you kind of stick with your community. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I think it's actually interesting. I think we should talk a little bit about FPWR.
Yeah.
So, because I think it's a good case study to sort of look at
sure.
in the whole peer-to-peer thing. So, how many major offices does FPWR have? None. So, what's interesting to me is you look at a lot of these other sort of major organizations around health topics, health research, whatever, and they have dozens, if not more, mm-hmm. of regional offices.
Right.
And I've spoken to plenty of them myself, and their only purpose is fundraising. Mm-hmm. And again, this is this sort of traditional model, major gifts, hosting events that are around sponsorships and major gifts.
Right.
What you guys have done, since 2009, is an interesting journey, I think. And
we launched our platform in that. Yeah. We launched when did we launch our platform? It might have been 2009, 2010. It might have been 2010. So at PWR, I joined in 2005. It was an organization that was, a year or so old. We were doing about $50,000 a year, $50 to $100,000 a year in event-based fundraising. Okay, 2 events. And then over the next, 2005 to 2000, roughly the next 5 years, we were raising, we increased it, but we were raising about $450,000 to $500,000 a year. Kind of hit that level, And when you get into nonprofit fundraising, I think your first level is $100,000, and then you get to, let's raise $500,000, and then maybe do $1 million. And so we decided that we were going to take something that had started in Canada, and we were going to kind of, not franchise it, but really start to kind of brand it and stick it out there as an international competition, right? We're going to run a walk internationally. And for the organizations that, there's a million of them, right, that have been so successful at doing that, right? JDRF has been amazing at it. We always look up to them and what they do. Leukemia Society does it. American Heart does where they do it with heart balls versus dogs. And so you see these organizations that have really kind of standardized that, Alzheimer's as a walk, and we wanted to do the same thing. And first year we did it, we raised $500,000 online.
Wow.
So we doubled our revenue. Okay.
Not bad.
And no, not at all. I will tell you the software helped, right? There's no doubt. And we built our own platform, which is not typical, right? But
although in 2009, 2010, wasn't quite as popular as it is.
there wasn't. And I have a software development background, and we looked at what we were going to pay, the tools that were out there, and said, I don't know, let's place a bet that we can do this ourselves, and over the long run, if this is going to be successful, save ourselves some money. So we did that. But the platform raises on average each year about $1.5 million. The organization's doing anywhere from $2.5 to $3 million a year. Okay, and keep in mind that platform and the reach that it's enabled us to get has enabled us to get donations in other ways as well. So it's a snowball. So think about it, especially for an organization like FPWR. So we're a grant funding organization, right? So we're taking in requests for money, basically to do research projects or kind of therapeutic or clinical projects related to this disorder. We're evaluating those with a scientific board, and we're handing out grants to go out and do these projects. And you're able to get money when you start to show that the money you've given in the past has resulted in something
significant.
Yeah. Or just,
or has created an impact at least.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sometimes getting an answer you didn't expect is good. It doesn't always have to be some sort of positive progress, but that you're advancing, the thought and the level of knowledge around the disorder. So because we were able to kind of get that going, that starts to snowball. Now you start to recruit new investigators. You start to generate way new interesting types of relationships and sort of results, and then all of a sudden, here's what happens. Then you have other major potential donors out there who see that and say, I want to give a lot of money to this disorder for personal reasons, and I like what they're doing. I see the progress that they're making, and because we've been able to fund that through our efforts, now you start to get the major gifts.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So it's almost like a reverse of what some people might expect.
That's right.
Yeah.
So talking about this whole experience of converting tribe members and the funnel and stuff like that, I have one more question because we're at 2:29. How important in these kinds of crowdfunding campaigns is the post-giving experience, so the experience someone has after they give?
It's important. Often ignored, right? And it's tough, right? Especially if it's event-based, it's like, I just need to relax for 2 weeks. I just need to get this event and I'm going to decompress or whatever. Post-event, you want to make sure that you've obviously thanked them. You want to stay in touch with them and keep them connected to what you're doing. Now people give for different reasons, right? And peer-to-peer can take a little bit of pressure off you for that. I've been to walks of my friends and all that other kind of stuff. I've given to certain people's fundraising pages. I can tell you, in some cases, I don't even remember what they were supporting. I gave them money, because it's like, hey, it's Nathan. Here's $50. I trust you, right? You're raising money for a good cause, I'm sure. Something important to you, and that's what's important to me. That it's important to you. So I think that helps a little bit. But definitely give them a receipt, give them a thank you letter. Figure out ways that you can stay connected with them, and invite them to stay connected with you. Knowing that in the peer-to-peer side, it's not always going to happen.
Right.
Yeah. And again, this topic sort of does bring up questions of, how do I even get started? What platform would I even use? That sort of thing.
Right.
And there's certainly plenty of them out there.
There are.
There's lots of commercially available ones. The gotcha sort of is a lot of times the fees that are charged for amounts that are raised.
Yep.
But if you just want to get your feet wet and you just want to get out there, you can use platforms that are commercially available. You can always switch to something, that may have a bigger upfront investment, but over time is going to save you money. After you've kind of got things off the ground. And obviously the most, I would say the most prominent one that's out there is probably Classy for small organizations. There's kind of DIY tools like WordPress combined with Give, or there's some other tools similar to that out there, which is really very easy to get started. It's not so much geared towards peer-to-peer.
Right.
It's more, you manually set up each page
Right.
sort of thing. And then there's tools like what you guys have, which take a little bit more setup initially.
Right.
But if you're a medium-sized organization where you're expecting to bring in $1 million
Right.
in a campaign season,
Yeah.
it makes sense to bite the bullet and do it.
It could, yes. So, kind of two thoughts to close on that. There's a ton of tools out there, right? I like the Fundly one, Fundly Enterprise. I think it works well. We built ours, as you know, on top of City CRM, which is an open source one. We open sourced our whole platform at onesmallstep.epidemic.org. We open source the whole thing, okay? But it requires some engineering effort to make it work. I mean, because it was built for us, it's not like it was productized, packaged, wrapped, documented, anything, right? So, it'd be a fun project for somebody to kind of fire it up and try to get it to work. So, but it does function and work. But as I said, there are a lot of them out there. Related to that, as you know, certain things cost money to make money. That is not a theory that resonates well with some charities and nonprofits, but it is the reality, right? Is that you want these professional tools and you want organizations to create them. Well, the organizations, it's going to cost them money to create them.
Right.
So obviously they're going to cost you money. The goal is not to look at what these tools cost. The goal is to look at what they can actually generate.
Right.
And what's the net?
Yes.
Yeah.
And we do this with Handbid and auctions all the time. I mean, Handbid, 99% of the time, more than pays for itself. Okay.
Right.
And increased engagement, guests have a blast, you raise more money at your auction. All of those things are true. But, and this goes to the last point I'm going to make, and this is the same is true for peer-to-peer fundraising platforms. They don't raise money on their own. You do not turn these tools on and then they just, Handbid doesn't automatically generate bids, right? There's no tool out there that does that. And peer-to-peer fundraising platforms don't automatically generate fundraising pages, and they certainly don't automatically generate people to donate to them.
Invested people, right?
It requires effort, okay? And we talk to clients about this all the time, and if I would tell this to anybody out there who looks at what FPWR is doing and says, oh, I'm just going to use their platform and it's going to raise me $1.5 million, it is not, okay? You have to recruit fundraisers. You have to keep them engaged. You have to, and this is why we use the spirit of competition. It's the same reason we do it inside of Handbid. Keeping people connected and engaged and getting them to start to compete against each other, that activity is what's going to generate the revenue, okay? And that is where I think a lot of folks think to themselves, well, I'm just going to go replace some tool I have. I use this, this expensive tool for a fun run, and I'm going to ditch it, and I'm just going to go something cheaper, and I'm going to run it myself. You can do that, right? And if you don't feel like you've got the infrastructure or the energy or the knowledge to do that, just do crowdfunding. Because crowdfunding doesn't require hardly any of that, okay? It won't generate as much money, right?
Mm-hmm.
So those are the trade-offs, right? I mean, you can do substantial, right, amounts of fundraising on a peer-to-peer fundraising platform if you put the effort in. Well, they're risky for some, and the risk doesn't necessarily come in terms of financial risk, because a lot of these are based on how much you raise. It comes in risk of your time.
Right.
Effort.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and we have, I don't know if this is how well released, but we talked about people who are reluctant to purchase the software, to sign up or to use these tools that will help them raise funds because they're expensive or there's a startup cost. On the Gil Perry site again, I thought this was such an interesting quote because we do come across this a lot with our nonprofit clients. We are leaving so very much money on the table just sitting there because of our reluctance to invest in fundraising. So if you can sort of picture it more as what you're leaving out there that you're not bringing into your organization, instead of, oh, this costs so much to to
Yeah.
start out.
I mean, if you look at organizations, and again, you know, we reference these guys a lot, and they're in a lot of case studies, they get a lot of attention, but organizations like Charity Water, who aren't that old, they're raising $43 million a year, and they're doing a huge chunk of that online from people who don't have any personal connection to their organization, you know, and they're heavily invested in online platforms, marketing tools.
But depending on the size of your organization, or maybe you're just one person, and we talked about this in our intro before this started. For example, I have a friend, Marissa Cherry. She raised $12,000 to build a well in Africa somewhere, and she just did it through her social media platforms that she used. So she was really willing to invest her own personal time and energy, which is kind of the trade-off that you were talking about. Like she didn't use
And guess what? She raised it to do for an organization to implement.
She did, yeah. Yeah, she started out with a goal of 1,000, I think, and then she got that and decided to make it 12,000.
But there, what you're looking at is the
how old?
passion and the energy, right?
16.
Yeah,
I
and
think
she's like,
15 or 16.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's, we tell our clients a lot, right? We'll say to them, because they'll say, well, what if it doesn't work? Well, it works, okay? I mean, we've been around for 5 years, it works, okay?
Yeah.
But it's not even the technology side. It's not saying is the technology going to fail? Is the mobile bidding software going to fail, or is the peer-to-peer software going to fail? They're afraid that the campaign just isn't going to generate the money, okay? And and it's always like for us in Hammond, it's what if my bidders are too old? What if they hate it? What if they don't bring their phones? What if their phones die? What if the power goes out? I mean, you go down the list, right? And peer to peer, we hear the same thing. Like, what if nobody makes page? What if nobody donates to the page?
What if our audience isn't
And a lot of times I have to tell them, like, there's some you can get into planning with them on some of that. Okay, well, let's talk about what's going to make that work or not work. But the general response a lot of times I get is, well, you won't know until you try. Right? And, that seems uncomfortable to certain people. But, I listened to a podcast on the guy who founded Charity Water. And, what's interesting about him, it's a great story. But one of the things that was interesting is that he didn't take conventional advice. Right? He didn't look at it and say, he had a lot of people telling him what he should do.
Yeah.
Right? And he'd be like, that doesn't really make sense to me. I don't come from this industry.
Right.
And I've dropped myself into certain industries that I didn't quote unquote come from.
Right.
And you do the same thing. You're like, well, why do they do it? Why would I do it that way?
Right.
Why don't I do it this way instead? Well, that's not how it's done. Well, maybe
Maybe
it should be.
or maybe it doesn't matter.
Right.
Maybe it should change, or maybe it doesn't really matter. And with Handbit, we tell folks a lot of times it's like, it's not about whether the software will work. It's not about whether or not mobile bidding works, because we've been around for a long time. It's really about how are you going to make it work, right? How much effort are you going to put into it? What kind of items are you going to get, right? You can't make an ugly item look pretty, right? We can make it look better, but not pretty, and you have to kind of just push them. Same thing with peer-to-peer, and in the trials we've done, Handbit has partnered with Funneling. We're doing some peer-to-peer trials with them. It's the same type of thing with that, it's, you can't just throw a page up and expect that it's just automatically going to work. Right? You've got to put the campaign together.
So something that I like, I don't know if are we out of time? Because I have more
We should
questions.
have it,
Okay.
Yeah, we should have it.
All right. Yeah, it is 10
About 10
minutes
minutes
past.
over.
Okay.
All right.
So, any quick thoughts before we?
I have one more question. We can wrap up on that.
All right, what's your question?
So, as far as, because I know that uncomfortable feeling, I did my own, I've done a fundraiser before too, and it was this balance of, I wanted to promote it, but I didn't want to sort of spam people's Facebook page over and over and over, just asking, do you have any really quick tips for people how to do that in it? Or do you just do it and you just go for it and you don't worry about
Okay,
that?
well, I will tell you, when you post to your network, you're really not spamming their page, right? So you're going to fall into a feed, they're either going to see it.
Right,
so,
They can scroll by, they have a choice. To
post
stop
away, okay?
Yeah.
Trust me.
Yeah.
It's non-intrusive, non-interrupting type of marketing, right? They're scrolling through their feed on their phone and they're going to see it, or they're not going to see it. Okay. In terms of other advice on how to really get it out there, yeah, I think that you have to take it to a level that you probably are a little uncomfortable with.
I think
I
that's
do.
good advice. Yeah.
I do. I ask certain people in my networks for money once a year, and I tell them I'm only going to ask you once a year. And if you don't want to be connected to me or friends with me or anything else, that's okay. I totally understand. You can even opt out. I'll still be connected to you, and you'll never get a notice from me again.
Right.
But once a year, I'm going to ask for this. And if you support me, that is awesome, and that's amazing, right? If you don't, that's okay too.
Right.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's key is like, how often do you run a campaign on your Facebook page as an individual? I don't think many people do more than one a year.
If you did it every month, you probably have a harder challenge, right? Getting your friends to continually donate to you. But if you did it once a year, they know it's coming up. Oh, it's a derby event. Jeff's going to ask for money. I get it, right? It's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that advice.
All
I
right,
think that's
cool.
great closing. Be
Yeah,
bold and
thank you guys for watching.
Yeah.
Thank
Yep.
you, Jeff, for
Thank
joining
you.
us. Sure. Enjoyed having you on, and we'll have a edited version of the video up a little bit later. We'll have some clips available at nonprofit.chat, and of course we'll have some links. So we'll link Handbid, we'll link Fundly, and a few other tools that we mentioned.
Cool. All right.
Awesome.
Thanks so
Thank
much.
you.
All right, bye bye.